Captain Hyunwoo Kim stood on the bridge of the New Seoul, watching the stars through the main screen. His ship was small compared to the massive vessels that explored deep space, but it was his home. For 3 years, he and his crew had traveled through unknown parts of the galaxy, mapping new worlds and looking for resources that Earth desperately needed. "Captain, I'm seeing something strange on the scanners," said Bo-Ram Lee from her position at the navigation station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls, bringing up displays that showed the space around them. "There are massive objects ahead, but they don't match any ship designs in our database." Hyunwoo moved closer to look at the readings. Whatever was out there was huge, much larger than any human ship ever built. "How many?" he asked. "At least 20, sir. Maybe more. They're arranged in some kind of formation, like they're waiting for something." Taemin Park looked up from the engineering console, his face worried. "Captain, those things are giving off energy signatures I've never seen before. The power levels are off the charts." So young Choi, who handled all communications, suddenly straightened in her chair. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. It's not coming through our normal channels. Somehow they're speaking directly into our communication system." "Put it on speakers," Hyunwoo ordered. A voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect Korean but with a strange accent that made the words sound musical and threatening at the same time. "Small creatures in the metal shell, you have entered sacred space of the Veltari Empire. Your presence here is forbidden. Prepare to be taken." Before anyone could respond, the New Seoul shuddered violently. The lights flickered, and alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Taemin's hands flew over his controls, trying to understand what was happening. "They've got us in some kind of tractor beam," he shouted over the noise. "I can't break free. Our engines aren't responding." Through the main screen, they watched as enormous ships became visible. The alien vessels looked nothing like human technology. They were organic in shape, like massive sea creatures swimming through space. Their hulls seemed to shift and change color, showing patterns of blue and purple light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "So Young, send a message to Earth," Hyunwoo commanded. "Tell them what's happening here." "I'm trying, Captain, but something is blocking our long-range communications. We can't send anything beyond this area." The New Seoul was pulled steadily toward the largest of the alien ships. As they got closer, they could see that it was easily 100 times bigger than their vessel. An opening appeared in its side, large enough to swallow their entire ship. "Everyone stay calm," Hyunwoo said, though his own heart was beating fast. "We knew this might happen someday. First contact with an alien species was always a possibility." "Yeah, but we hoped they'd be friendly," Bo-Ram muttered. The New Seoul was pulled into the alien ship's docking bay. The moment they were inside, the bay filled with a breathable atmosphere. Through the screen, they could see figures moving toward their ship. The aliens were tall and graceful, walking on 2 legs like humans but clearly different. They had smooth, dark skin that seemed to have a shell-like quality, and their heads were elongated. Most striking were the patterns of light that moved across their bodies, similar to the lights they had seen on the ships. "Captain, they're requesting that we open our airlock," So Young reported. "The atmosphere outside matches what we need to breathe." Hyunwoo made a decision that would change everything. "Open it, but everyone stays calm and follows my lead." The airlock opened and a group of aliens entered the ship. They moved with confidence and purpose, clearly in control of the situation. The one in front was obviously the leader, wearing more elaborate markings and carrying what looked like a weapon that pulsed with the same blue light as their ships. The leader spoke in that same musical Korean. "I am Commander Dae-ho of the Veltari Imperial Guard. You will come with us to face judgment for your crimes." "What crimes?" Hyunwoo asked, stepping forward to place himself between the aliens and his crew. "We're explorers. We didn't know. This space belonged to anyone. Ignorance is not acceptable. You have entered the sacred boundary of our empire. This is a crime punishable by death." The aliens surrounded the human crew and guided them through corridors that seemed to be alive. The walls pulsed gently, and the floor felt soft under their feet. Everything was decorated with flowing patterns and soft lights that created an almost dreamlike atmosphere. They were brought to a vast chamber that took Hyunwoo's breath away. The room was enormous, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows. At the center, on a throne that seemed to be made of living crystal, sat the most impressive being Hyunwoo had ever seen. The alien queen was tall and graceful, with the same shell-like skin as the others, but her patterns of light were more complex and beautiful. They moved across her body like flowing water, changing from blue to purple to silver. Her face was similar to a human's but more angular, with large eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. Around the throne, dozens of other aliens stood watching. Some wore elaborate robes, while others had armor similar to the guards. All of them looked at the humans with a mixture of curiosity and disgust. The queen spoke, and her voice carried easily across the large room. "I am Queen Nari Velthara, ruler of the Veltari Empire. You small creatures have committed a great offense by entering our sacred space without permission." Hyunwoo stepped forward, ignoring the weapons that immediately pointed at him. "Your Majesty, I am Captain Hyunwoo Kim of the human ship New Seoul. We didn't know this area was claimed by your people. We're explorers from a planet called Earth, and we mean no harm to you or your empire." Queen Nari leaned forward on her throne, studying him with those glowing eyes. "Humans. Yes, we have observed your kind from a distance. You are young and primitive, barely able to leave your own world. Yet you dare to enter the most sacred region of our territory. We'll leave immediately and never return," Hyunwoo said. "Just let us go back to our ship." The queen's patterns shifted to a darker, red color, and several aliens in the audience made sounds that might have been laughter or threats. "Leave?" Queen Nari stood from her throne, and Hyunwoo realized she was nearly 8 feet tall. "You think you can simply leave after committing such an offense? The penalty for entering sacred Veltari space is death. All of you will be executed." Terkyu. Words hit the human crew like a physical blow. Boram grabbed So Young's hand while Taemin moved closer to his captain. But Hyunwoo didn't back down. "Then execute me," he said clearly. "But let my crew go. They were following my orders. I'm responsible for bringing us here." The queen stopped walking. Her light patterns changed again, this time to colors Hyunwoo had never seen before. She stared at him for a long moment, and the entire chamber fell silent. Something had changed in that moment, though none of the humans understood what it was. Queen Nari walked slowly around Hyunwoo, studying him like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. Her light patterns had changed to colors that seemed almost curious, shifting from deep blue to soft purple. The other aliens in the chamber watched in silence, clearly surprised by their queen's behavior. "You would die for them?" she asked, her musical voice echoing in the vast room. "These others who followed you into sacred space?" "Yes," Hyunwoo answered without hesitation. "I'm their captain. Their lives are my responsibility." The queen stopped directly in front of him. Even though she was much taller, Hyunwoo met her, glowing eyes steadily. Behind him, he could hear Boram whispering something to So Young, but he couldn't make out the words. "Interesting," Queen Nari said. She turned to address the assembled aliens. "In all our history, when have we seen a lesser species show such courage? When have we seen one willing to die for others?" A large alien with silver markings and military bearing stepped forward. His patterns pulsed with angry red light. "My Queen, this changes nothing. They have violated our sacred space. The law is clear." "The law, General Kwan," the queen said, her voice taking on a sharp edge. "Yes? Let us speak of the law. Tell me, what does the ancient law say about the right of royal mercy?" General Kwan's patterns shifted to darker colors, clearly not happy with the direction of the conversation. "The royal mercy allows a ruler to spare condemned prisoners through sacred bonding. But, Your Majesty, this has never been used with aliens. These creatures are not of our kind. The law does not specify that the condemned must be Veltari," Queen Nari replied smoothly. She turned back to Hyunwoo, and her patterns became brighter, more complex. "Human captain, I will give you a choice that no alien has ever been offered." The chamber fell completely silent. Even the soft sounds of The living ship seemed to pause. Hyunwoo felt his crew moving closer behind him, and he could sense their fear and confusion. "You have shown courage that impressed even me," the Queen continued. "So I offer you this. Marry me and become my consort, binding our peoples together. In sacred union, do this and you and your crew will live. Refuse and all of you will be executed as the law demands." The words hit Hyunwoo like a physical blow. Around the chamber, aliens made sounds of shock and disbelief. General Kwan's patterns flared with bright red anger, while other nobles showed patterns that seemed to indicate confusion or outrage. "Your Majesty," General Kwan protested, "this is impossible. You cannot bond with a primitive creature. The Empire would never accept such an alliance." Queen Nari's patterns shifted to colors that made even the general step back. "Are you questioning my authority, General?" "Never, my queen. But think of what this means. A royal bonding with an alien would change everything. Our people, our traditions, our very identity as Veltari." Boram grabbed Hyunwoo's arm. "Captain, you can't seriously consider this," she whispered urgently. "We don't even know what marriage means to these people. It could be some kind of trap." Taemin nodded agreement. "Sir, we'd rather die with honor than see you forced into this. We knew the risks when we signed up for deep space exploration." So Young stepped closer. "Captain, even if you agree, how do we know she'll keep her word? How do we know this isn't just some cruel game?" Hyunwoo heard his crew's concerns, but his mind was racing beyond their immediate situation. This wasn't just about the four of them anymore. If these Veltari were as powerful as their technology suggested, humanity could be facing a threat that would make their current problems seem small. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "why would you make such an offer? What could you possibly gain from bonding with a human?" Queen Nari's patterns shifted again, becoming more subdued. For the first time, she looked almost vulnerable. "You ask good questions, human captain. Perhaps that is why you interest me." She walked back to her throne but didn't sit down. Instead, she stood beside it, her hand resting on the living crystal. "The Veltari Empire is old, older than your entire species. We have conquered many worlds and brought order to this part of the galaxy. But empires that do not grow eventually die." General Kwan made a sound of protest, but the Queen silenced him with a look. "We face challenges that pure strength cannot solve," she continued. "Our birth rates decline. Our worlds show signs of strain. Some among us believe the answer is conquest, taking what we need from younger species like yours. But I believe there might be another way." "And that is?" Hyunwoo asked. "Alliance, learning, growing beyond what we have always been." The Queen's patterns became brighter as she spoke. "You humans are young and weak, yes, but in the short time we have observed you, we have seen creativity and adaptability that we lack. Perhaps together, our peoples could become something greater than either could be alone." The chamber erupted in sounds from the assembled aliens. Some patterns flashed with anger, others with curiosity, and still others with what might have been fear. General Kwan stepped forward again. "My queen, you speak of things that go against everything we are. The Veltari are pure. We do not dilute our strength by mixing with lesser species." "And where has our purity brought us, General?" Queen Nari asked sharply. "To stagnation, to a slow decline that we refuse to acknowledge." Hyunwoo realized he was witnessing more than just a proposal of marriage. This was a political crisis within the alien empire. The Queen was using their situation to push for changes that clearly had opposition among her own people. "Your Majesty," he said, "I understand the honor you're offering me. But I need to know what this bonding would mean for both our peoples. Would my crew be allowed to return to Earth and tell our leaders what happened here?" "They would be free to go," the Queen confirmed. "The bonding would create a sacred link between our empires. It would mean that attacking your people would be attacking the Veltari royal family itself." Boram grabbed his arm again. "Captain, don't do this. Humanity shouldn't have to depend on one person's sacrifice for protection." "Maybe it shouldn't," Hyunwoo agreed. "But right now it might have to." He looked at each of his crew members, seeing the fear and determination in their faces. These people had trusted him to lead them safely through the unknown, and he had led them into a trap. But maybe, just maybe, that trap could become an opportunity. "Your Majesty," he said, turning back to the Queen, "I accept your proposal, but I have conditions of my own." The chamber went completely silent again. Even Queen Nari seemed surprised. "You make conditions of a Veltari queen?" General Quan demanded. "You forget yourself, alien." But Queen Nari raised a hand to silence him. Her patterns had shifted to colors that seemed almost amused. "Speak your conditions, human captain. Let us see if your courage extends to negotiation as well as sacrifice." Hyunwoo took a deep breath. Everything depended on what he said next. Not just his life and the lives of his crew, but possibly the entire future relationship between humanity and this powerful alien empire. "First," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the chamber, "my crew must be released unharmed and allowed to return to Earth immediately. Second, human territory must be recognized and respected by the Veltari Empire. Third, I must be treated as an equal partner in this bonding, not as a trophy or a pet." The aliens in the chamber made sounds of outrage, but Hyunwoo wasn't finished. "And, finally," he said, looking directly into Queen Nari's glowing eyes, "I request a proper courtship period according to human customs. If we're to be bonded for life, I want the chance to understand you and your people, just as you should understand mine." Queen Nari stared at him for what seemed like an eternity. Then, slowly, her patterns shifted to colors that seemed to indicate delight. "Remarkable," she said. "Absolutely remarkable." Queen Nari's patterns shifted through colors that Hyunwoo was beginning to recognize meant amusement and interest. The other aliens in the chamber, however, showed patterns that clearly meant anger and disbelief. "You demand a courtship period?" General Quan stepped forward, his patterns flashing bright red. "Your Majesty, this creature mocks our traditions. No one makes demands of the Veltari royal family." "And yet," the Queen said smoothly, "he has done exactly that. Tell me, General, what harm could there be in allowing these humans to understand our ways before the bonding ceremony?" "The harm, my Queen, is in showing weakness to inferior species. If we allow one alien to make demands, others will follow. Our authority will crumble." Queen Nari walked down from her throne until she stood directly in front of the general. Even though he was large and intimidating, she somehow made him seem small. "Our authority, General, comes from our strength and wisdom, not from our refusal to listen. If this human's requests are reasonable, why should we not consider them?" She turned back to Hyunwoo. "Very well, Captain Kim. I accept your conditions. Your crew will be released and may return to Earth. Human territory will be respected by our forces. You will be treated as my equal partner, not as a possession, and we will have a courtship period of 1 month, during which you will learn our ways and we will learn yours." The chamber erupted in sounds of protest from many of the assembled aliens, but the Queen's patterns flashed with colors that immediately silenced them. "The decision is made," she declared. "General Quan, see that the human crew is given a ship capable of reaching their home world. Captain Kim will remain here as my guest during our courtship period." Boram started to protest, but Hyunwoo held up his hand. "It's okay," he told his crew. "This is the best chance we have to prevent a war between our peoples. Go back to Earth and tell them everything that happened here." Taemin looked worried. "Captain, are you sure about this? We don't even know what marriage means to these people." "I'm sure," Hyunwoo replied, though he wasn't entirely certain himself. "Just make sure Earth knows that the Veltari are powerful, but not necessarily our enemies. Maybe this can lead to something good for both our species." As his crew was led away by guards with more gentle patterns, Queen Nari approached him. "Come, Captain Kim, let me show you to your quarters. We have much to discuss." She led him through corridors that continued to amaze him. The walls seemed alive, pulsing gently with soft light. The floors felt organic under his feet, and he realized that the entire ship was more grown than built. "Your ship is incredible," he said as they walked. "I've never seen technology like this." "Technology?" Queen Nari's pattern shifted to amusement again. This is not technology as you understand it. We do not build our ships, Captain. We grow them. They are living beings, bred over centuries to serve as our vessels. They stopped at a doorway that opened without any visible control. Inside was a room that had clearly been prepared for a human guest. There was a bed that looked normal, though it seemed to be made of the same living material as the ship. There were chairs sized for a human, and even what appeared to be a bathroom with facilities he could recognize. "How did you know what I would need?" he asked. "We have been observing your species for some time, Captain. We know much about human biology and basic needs." She paused, her patterns becoming more serious. "What we do not know is why you humans behave as you do, why you sacrifice for others, why you explore dangerous regions of space, why you ask questions instead of simply accepting what you are told." Over the following days, Hyunwoo began to understand the complexity of Veltari society. Queen Nari introduced him to various members of her court, and each interaction taught him something new. He met Ji-hoon, a young Veltari scientist who was fascinated by human technology. Despite being much larger and stronger than Hyunwoo, Ji-hoon was eager to learn about human engineering principles. "Your ship's power systems are so crude," Ji-hoon said one day, as they examined technical readings. "Yet somehow you achieved faster-than-light travel with them. How is this possible?" Hyunwoo studied the data the alien scientist was showing him. "We had to find creative solutions because our technology is limited. Sometimes limitations force you to think in new ways." "New ways," Ji-hoon repeated, his patterns shifting to colors that seemed to indicate deep thought. "Yes, perhaps that is what we lack. We have perfected our methods over thousands of years, but perfection can mean stagnation." It was during one of these conversations that Hyunwoo made his first major contribution to Veltari society. The living ships had been experiencing problems with their shield harmonics, causing energy fluctuations that reduced their effectiveness. "Show me the frequency patterns," Hyunwoo requested, looking at the data Ji-hoon had brought him. "You cannot possibly understand this," another scientist, Yoonji, protested. "These are harmonics based on biological rhythms developed over millennia." But as Hyunwoo studied the patterns, he began to see something the Veltari had missed. "You're trying to maintain perfect harmony," he said. "But perfect harmony is static. What if you introduce controlled variations like music?" The Veltari scientists looked at him as if he had spoken nonsense, but Ji-hoon's patterns showed interest. "Explain this music concept." Hyunwoo spent hours teaching them about human music theory, about how harmony could be dynamic rather than static, how controlled discord could actually strengthen overall structure. When they applied these principles to their shield systems, the improvement was immediate and dramatic. Word of this success spread throughout the ship, and Hyunwoo found himself consulted on other problems. His fresh perspective, unconstrained by thousands of years of Veltari tradition, allowed him to see solutions that had been invisible to them. Queen Nari watched these developments with growing interest. During their private conversations, she began to share more about the challenges facing her empire. "We are dying, Captain Kim," she told him one evening as they stood in an observation chamber looking out at the stars. "Not quickly, not dramatically, but slowly and steadily. Our birth rates have been declining for centuries. Our worlds are becoming less productive. Our people grow more rigid in their thinking with each generation. But you have incredible technology," Hyunwoo observed. "Your ships, your weapons, your knowledge of space travel far exceed ours. Technology without adaptability is just elaborate decoration," the Queen replied, her patterns showing sadness. "We have perfected what we know, but we have forgotten how to learn new things. That is why General Quan and others like him want to conquer your people and take what you have. They believe strength and taking are the only solutions. And you believe differently? I believe that two species learning from each other could become stronger than either could be alone." She turned to face him, her glowing eyes reflecting the starlight. "But I am not certain I am right. Perhaps the General's way is the only way for us to survive." "There's another option," Hyunwoo said carefully. "Instead of conquering or hiding, what if the Veltari became teachers and partners? What if your knowledge and our adaptability worked together to solve problems neither of us could handle alone, Queen? Nari's patterns shifted through complex colors he had never seen before. You speak of things that would change everything about how we see ourselves and our place in the galaxy. Maybe everything needs to change, Hyunwoo suggested. Maybe that's the only way either of our peoples will survive what's coming. Their conversations continued each day, and Hyunwoo began to see that Queen Nari was fighting a battle within her own government. Many of her nobles and military leaders wanted to expand the empire through conquest. They saw younger species, like humanity, as resources to be harvested, not partners to be respected. But there were others, like Ji-hoon and a few younger nobles, who were intrigued by the possibilities Hyunwoo represented. They had grown up watching their civilization slowly stagnate, and they were hungry for new ideas and new ways of thinking. The month of courtship was drawing to a close, and Hyunwoo realized that his feelings about the situation had changed, completely. What had started as a desperate attempt to save his crew and prevent a war had become something much more complex. He genuinely respected Queen Nari. She was intelligent, thoughtful, and genuinely cared about her people's future. She was also trapped by thousands of years of tradition and the expectations of her role as queen. Tomorrow we must make our decision final, she told him on the last evening of their courtship period. Are you prepared to bind your life to mine and to the future of both our peoples? Hyunwoo looked out at the stars and thought about Earth, about his crew who were hopefully safe by now, about the billions of humans who didn't even know this alien empire existed. Yes, he said. But I think we both know that our real challenges are just beginning. The wedding ceremony was set to take place in 3 days. Hyunwoo had spent the morning learning about Veltari bonding traditions from Ji-hoon, when alarms suddenly began blaring throughout the ship. The living walls pulsed with urgent red light, and he could feel the ship itself trembling. What's happening? Hyunwoo asked, but Ji-hoon's patterns had changed to colors he had learned meant fear and confusion. I don't know, the young scientist said. These are military emergency signals, but we're not under attack. Before either of them could move toward the door, it burst open. Armed Veltari soldiers entered, their patterns flashing with aggressive colors. Behind them came General Kwan, his silver markings now pulsing with dark red anger. By order of you, the military council of the Veltari Empire, General Kwan announced, the human creature and all who have been corrupted by his presence are under arrest. What are you talking about? Ji-hoon demanded, stepping protectively in front of Hyunwoo. The queen has made her decision. The bonding ceremony has her full approval. The queen, General Kwan said with disgust, has been contaminated by alien influence. She is no longer fit to rule. The military council has voted to remove her from power and take control of the empire. Hyunwoo felt his blood run cold. This is a coup. This is survival, the general corrected. Queen Nari's foolish ideas about alliance and cooperation would have led to the destruction of everything we are. The Veltari Empire was built on strength and conquest, not on weakness and compromise. The soldiers surrounded both Hyunwoo and Ji-hoon, forcing them out of the room and through corridors that were now filled with armed guards. As they walked, Hyunwoo could see other aliens being arrested. Many showed patterns of fear and confusion, clearly not understanding what was happening to their ordered world. They were brought to the same great chamber where Hyunwoo had first met Queen Nari, but now it looked completely different. The beautiful throne had been replaced with a harsh military command center. Instead of the flowing decorations and soft lights, everything was now stark and functional. Queen Nari was already there, held between 2 guards. Her hands were bound with metal restraints that seemed to cause her pain, because her light patterns were dim and flickering. When she saw Hyunwoo, her patterns briefly brightened. I'm sorry, she said. I should have seen this coming. Silence, General Kwan ordered. He turned to address the assembled soldiers and the few nobles who had apparently supported the coup. Citizens of the Empire, today we correct a terrible mistake. Our queen allowed herself to be influenced by an inferior alien species. She was prepared to contaminate our pure bloodline and weaken our empire through impossible alliances. The general walked over to stand directly in front of Hyunwoo. You, human, have caused more damage than any enemy weapon ever could. Your presence here has divided our people and weakened our resolve. But that ends today. What do you plan to do? Hyunwoo asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. First, you and the false queen will be executed publicly, to show all Veltari what happens to those who betray our traditions. Then we will proceed with the original plan. The full might of the Empire will be directed against your homeworld. We will take what we need from your people and eliminate the threat you represent to our purity. Queen Nari's patterns flashed with desperate anger. General, you're making a mistake that will destroy everything our ancestors built. The Empire needs to change to survive. Conquest alone will only delay our decline. Our ancestors conquered half the galaxy without help from aliens, General Quan replied. We will follow their example, not the weak dreams of a contaminated ruler. As the general spoke, Hyunwoo noticed something. Not all of the Veltari in the chamber showed the same patterns. While most displayed the aggressive colors that indicated support for the general, a few showed different colors. Uncertainty, maybe even disagreement. General, one of the younger nobles said, perhaps we should consider the queen's ideas more carefully. The human has shown abilities that could benefit the empire. The human, General Quan said coldly, has shown the danger of alien contamination. Look at you, noble Sung-ho. Even you have been affected by his presence. This is exactly why he must be eliminated. The noble's patterns shifted to fear, and he stepped back into the crowd. Queen Nari leaned closer to Hyunwoo and whispered, There is something you must know. My people are not united behind this coup. Many are afraid to speak against the general, but they do not truly support him. How does that help us? Hyunwoo whispered back. If we could escape, if we could reach the ship's communication center, I could broadcast to the entire fleet. Many captains are loyal to me, not to the military council. Before Hyunwoo could ask how they might escape, the chamber's doors burst open again. This time it was Boram, Taemin, and So-young, along with several Veltari he didn't recognize. They were armed with Veltari weapons and moving with military precision. Captain, Boram shouted as they opened fire on the guards. We're getting you out of here. The chamber erupted in chaos. General Kwan's soldiers returned fire, but they had been caught completely by surprise. Hyunwoo's crew moved like they had been training with Veltari weapons for years, which was impossible since they had left just a few weeks ago. Ji-hoon appeared at Hyunwoo's side, working to free the restraints that held both him and Queen Nari. Your crew returned with a human diplomatic fleet, he explained quickly. But more importantly, they brought new ideas about tactics and strategy that some of our ship captains found very interesting. How did they get past the general's security? Queen Nari asked as her restraints fell away. They didn't get past it, Taemin called out while firing at approaching soldiers. They went through it. Turns out human guerrilla tactics work really well when the enemy expects traditional military approaches. So-young had reached a communication panel and was working frantically with it. Your Majesty, if you can help me access the fleet communication system, we can get your message out. Queen Nari moved quickly to the panel, her patterns brightening as she worked. Yes, I can override the general's blocks, but we need to reach the main communication center. It's heavily guarded. Leave that to us, Boram said grimly. We learned a few things about moving through enemy territory on our way back from Earth. What followed was a running battle through the living ship's corridors. Hyunwoo's crew had somehow become experts in Veltari military tactics in just a few weeks, using hit-and-run strategies that completely confused the general's forces. How did you learn to fight like this? Hyunwoo asked Taemin as they took cover behind a living wall that was pulsing with alarm colors. Funny thing about spending weeks traveling with a Veltari escort, Taemin replied. Some of the younger officers were very interested in human military history. Turns out they've been studying human conflicts and were fascinated by concepts like asymmetric warfare. They reached the communication center after what seemed like hours of fighting. The facility was enormous, with organic communication arrays that stretched in all directions. Queen Nari went immediately to the central console while the others secured the entrances. I can reach every ship in the fleet from here, she said, her patterns showing determination. But I need time to bypass the general's security protocols. You'll have it, Hyunwoo promised, though he could hear enemy forces approaching from multiple directions. As Queen Nari worked, Hyunwoo found himself thinking about everything that had led to this moment. Just weeks ago, he had been a simple explorer. Now he was in the middle of a civil war that could determine the fate of two entire species. I'm almost through, Queen Nari announced. 30 more seconds. You don't have 30 seconds. General Kwan's voice came from the entrance. He stood there with a full squad of soldiers, all with weapons pointed at the small group. Step away from the communication console, false queen. Queen Nari's patterns flashed with defiance, but she didn't move away from the controls. You're too late, General. The message is already prepared. Then you will die before you can send it, the general replied coldly. Hyunwoo stepped forward, placing himself between the weapons and Queen Nari. General, before you do something that can't be undone, let me ask you something. What do you think will happen to the Veltari Empire after you conquer Earth? We will grow stronger, the general said. We will take what we need and eliminate a potential threat. And then what? What happens when you encounter the next species? And the one after that? Do you conquer everyone you meet until there's no one left but the Veltari? General Kwan's patterns shifted slightly. If necessary, yes. Then you'll be alone in the galaxy, Hyunwoo said. The last species standing with no one left to learn from, no one left to grow with. And when your empire finally does fail, there will be no one left to remember that the Veltari ever existed. For a moment the general hesitated, then his patterns hardened again. Better to die pure than to live contaminated. Queen Nari's hand moved over the final control. Now, she whispered. The message went out to every ship in the Veltari fleet, and Hyunwoo realized that everything depended on what happened in the next few minutes. Queen Nari's message filled every ship in the Veltari fleet. Her voice, clear and strong, spoke not just to her military commanders, but to every citizen of the empire. My people, she began, today you must choose the future of our civilization. General Kwan tells you that strength comes from purity, from conquest, from standing alone against the galaxy. I tell you that true strength comes from growth, from learning, from becoming more than we ever thought possible. Through the communication center's displays, they could see the fleet around them. Hundreds of massive ships hung in space, each one representing thousands of Veltari lives. On many of those ships, Hyunwoo knew, people were making a decision that would change everything. The human standing beside me, Queen Nari continued, came to us as a prisoner. He could have begged for mercy or tried to escape. Instead, he offered his life for his crew. He asked questions instead of accepting our judgment. He showed us solutions to problems we had struggled with for generations. This is not weakness. This is strength we have forgotten how to recognize. General Kwan's patterns flashed with rage. Enough of this contamination, he snarled, raising his weapon. I will end this now. But before he could fire, the communication center's doors exploded inward. Veltari soldiers poured through, but these wore different markings than the general's forces. Their leader, a Captain Hyunwoo recognized from his time on the ship, approached quickly. Your Majesty, the captain said, his patterns showing relief. Captain Min-soo of the Starfire reports for duty. The fleet captains have voted. 2/3 stand with you against this illegal coup. General Kwan looked around the chamber, suddenly realizing that his support was crumbling. Several of his own soldiers had lowered their weapons, their patterns showing uncertainty and fear. This is not possible, he said. The Empire cannot survive contamination by alien influences. The Empire cannot survive without change, Queen Nari replied firmly. And you know this is true, old friend. You have seen the reports. Our birth rates, our technological stagnation, our slowly dying worlds. Conquest alone will not save us. The general's patterns shifted through colors Hyunwoo had never seen before. For a moment, the proud military leader looked lost and confused. What you propose, General Kwan said slowly. It changes everything we are. Everything we have always been. Yes, Queen Nari agreed. Because everything we have always been is slowly dying. Over the next few hours, the situation throughout the fleet stabilized. Ships that had supported the coup surrendered one by one, as their crews realized that most of the Empire stood with their queen. General Quan himself was placed under arrest, though Queen Nari ordered that he be treated with respect. He was wrong, she explained to Hyunwoo, but he was trying to save our people in the only way he knew how. That deserves honor, even in defeat. 3 days later, the wedding ceremony took place as originally planned, but now it had become something much larger than a simple bonding between two individuals. Representatives from dozens of Veltari ships attended, along with the crew of Hyunwoo's original vessel, and members of the human diplomatic fleet that had arrived during the crisis. Admiral Su Jin Yang, the leader of the human diplomatic mission, stood beside Hyunwoo as he prepared for the ceremony. She was a stern woman who had spent her career preparing for humanity's first contact with alien species, though she had never imagined it would happen quite like this. "Captain Kim," she said quietly, "I want you to know that Earth supports your decision. The intelligence your crew brought back about the Veltari Empire made it clear that this marriage could prevent a war that would destroy both our civilizations." "I hope so," Hyunwoo replied. "But I think this is about more than preventing a war. I think this could be the beginning of something entirely new." The ceremony itself was unlike anything any human had ever witnessed. It took place in the Great Die chamber where Hyunwoo had first met Queen Nari, but now the space had been transformed. Living decorations covered the walls, pulsing gently with soft colors that seemed to respond to the emotions of everyone present. The air itself seemed to shimmer with energy. Queen Nari approached wearing robes that seemed to be made of liquid light. Her patterns were more complex and beautiful than Hyunwoo had ever seen them, flowing across her skin in waves of gold and silver. When she reached him, she spoke words in the ancient Veltari language, then repeated them in Korean. "With this bonding," she said, "I join my life to yours, my people to yours, my future to yours. What was separate becomes one. What was weak becomes strong." Hyunwoo responded with words they had practiced together, speaking first in Korean and then attempting the difficult Veltari phrases. "I accept this bonding freely, joining my life to yours, my people to yours, my future to yours. Together we will build something new under the stars." The ceremony concluded with both of them placing their hands on a crystal that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. The moment their skin touched its surface, Hyunwoo felt a strange sensation, as if something had changed at a fundamental level. Queen Nari's patterns brightened, and he realized that somehow he could almost understand what they meant. The celebration that followed lasted for days and included both human and Veltari traditions. But the real work began afterward, as they started the difficult process of building an actual alliance between their peoples. 5 years later, Hyunwoo stood on the observation deck of New Harmony, the joint human Veltari colony that had become home to thousands of people from both species. Through the transparent walls, he could see the bustling activity of a thriving community. Human children played alongside young Veltari, learning each other's languages and customs. Engineers from both species worked together on projects that neither could have accomplished alone. Queen Nari, now simply called Nari by the colonists, approached carrying their daughter. Dayun was 3 years old, with her mother's graceful movements and her father's curious eyes. Her skin showed faint patterns that shifted with her moods, a trait that fascinated scientists from both species. "The council meeting went well," Nari reported. "The terraforming project on Kepler 442b is ahead of schedule. Human atmospheric processors combined with Veltari biological engineering are producing results faster than anyone expected." "Any word from the outer colonies?" Hyunwoo asked, taking Daun into his arms. The little girl giggled and her skin pattern shifted to happy colors. "Boram reports that the joint exploration mission has discovered 3 more habitable worlds. Taemin thinks his new propulsion system will cut travel time to those systems by half." Hyunwoo smiled. His old crew had become key figures in the alliance. Boram now served as an ambassador between the human and Veltari governments. Taimin led joint engineering projects that were revolutionizing space travel for both species. So Young managed the complex communication networks that kept the growing alliance connected across dozens of star systems. Even General Quan had found a place in the New Order. After his release from prison, he had become an advisor on defense matters, using his military expertise to help protect the Alliance's colonies from other hostile alien species that saw the human-Veltari partnership as a threat. "There's something else," Nari said, her patterns showing excitement. Ji-hoon's research team believes they found a solution to the Veltari fertility crisis. Combining human genetics research with Veltari biotechnology might allow us to reverse the decline in birth rates. And the human colonies? Any problems with overcrowding? Just the opposite. With Veltari terraforming technology, we can make marginal worlds fully habitable. Earth's population pressure is already decreasing as people volunteer to settle new worlds. Da-un pointed toward a group of children playing in the colony's central park. "Mama, Papa, look, friends." Among the children were young humans and Veltari, but also others. The Alliance had attracted refugees and immigrants from several species, all looking for a place where cooperation mattered more than conquest. "The Zephyrian delegation arrives tomorrow," Nari mentioned. "They want to discuss joining the Alliance officially." "That would make 6 species," Hyunwoo mused. "When I first met you, I thought we were just trying to prevent a war between humans and Veltari. I never imagined it would grow into something like this." "Neither did I," Nari admitted. "But perhaps that's the point. When you're only thinking about survival, you can't see the possibilities for growth." As they watched their daughter play with children from multiple species, Hyunwoo reflected on how much had changed. The desperate choice he had made in the Veltari throne room had become the foundation for something unprecedented in galactic history, a true alliance of equals, where different species worked together not because they had to, but because together they could accomplish things that none of them could achieve alone. "Do you ever regret it?" Nari asked quietly. "Giving up your old life, your original mission, everything you thought your future would be?" Hyunwoo looked at his wife, his daughter, and the thriving community they had helped create. In the distance, human and Veltari ships were departing, on joint missions to explore new worlds and make contact with other species. The future was bigger and more hopeful than he had ever dared imagine. "Never," he said. "Sometimes the best choice is the one you never plan to make."